Okay, so what does it feel like to be in the middle of a changing world order when it actually starts to happen? Well, I have a couple of videos that are going to talk about this and what it looks like and feels like, but today I'm going to talk about hyperinflation. So this is one of the textbook classic things that happens whenever there's a changing world order, is a period of hyperinflation. Now, hyperinflation does not always happen in the middle of a changing world order, but it usually, hyperinflation does not mean it's a changing world order, but if there is a changing world order, there is hyperinflation, okay? And so to help you visualize what it feels like to be in hyperinflation, let me just describe a really great example, and this is from Germany right after World War I, and it's called the Weimar Republic. That was just the period of time in Germany that describes this period of hyperinflation. And so what had happened was this. So World War I was largely pegged on Germany. Germany's fault. They were the bad guys. And so during the Treaty of Versailles, there's a lot of stuff in there, but one of the things was basically, Germany, you got to pay for all the damage that you caused. And so there's this huge debt, and we just dump it on them. Well, this was a challenge because during the war, Germany lost a lot of its able-bodied people, right? Like a lot of men died, a lot of workers died. And then they also had a massive amount of destruction in their industrial parts of the country. So through bombings and all this kind of stuff, so factories were wiped out. So not only do they have to rebuild their own country, but they have this big burden on them to basically help rebuild all the countries that they damaged, right? And I'm not arguing the morality of this, right? It's maybe they deserved it, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just explaining it from the lens of a mechanic and how the system works. Okay, so because they had reduced capacity to produce and a huge burden placed on them to pay off a debt, they were in a really tight spot. Furthermore, when other countries during stable times find themselves in a lot of debt, or at least trying to stimulate their economy, they, like a central bank, a government, only has a few levers that they can pull to help stimulate the economy. And one of those is to create more, to basically bring in money by borrowing from other countries, right? So they can grow the national debt. Now, why didn't Germany do this? Well, they were the bad guys from World War I. Nobody wanted to lend them money. Plus, it didn't look like a very attractive lending partner, right? It's like someone who just foreclosed on their house and then they go to the bank asking for another mortgage, right? It's I don't see how you could pay this back, right? And on top of all that, the person is unemployed, right? It's I don't see how I'm going to make my money back, so I'm not going to loan you money. And it was like that with Germany. They couldn't borrow money from other countries, really. And so they can't pull that lever. Well, another lever that central economies could pull is to lower interest rates in their own economy. So it makes it easier for people to borrow money. Well, the money itself was already small, and so interest rates that wasn't a very effective lever for Germany to pull. Okay, and so they can't pull that lever. Well, the third one is to print money. And so really that was the last thing Germany could do. And so it started printing a lot of money to stimulate the economy. Well, it goes without saying that printing money dilutes the value of that money. And so it goes through inflation. Now, when you start going through inflation and you have all these other forces at the same time, like other headwinds, like you can't borrow money, your production is low, and so the printed money floods the economy, but it doesn't turn into production very fast, right? It's kind of hard to it takes sometimes years to rebuild a factory. And so it's not like the government gave those people money and they can tomorrow turn that money into production. It was kind of difficult. So as a result of that, the inflation just started skyrocketing and snowballed, and it started to get really crazy to the fact that in the year 1919, a loaf of bread in Germany cost 1 mark, and then in 1923, so just 4 years later, it cost several million marks. So in 4 years, you like had to be a millionaire just to buy one loaf of bread. It's crazy. And so that's just to highlight this period of hyperinflation. It's like to the point where people would ask, like employees would say, you got to pay me in cash every hour. And because like from getting your paycheck, in between getting your paycheck and walking to the bank, like you've already lost money because like the value of that dollar, the buying power of that dollar, it's just vaporized, it's gone. So people are like, give me your money, and they'd run, and they wouldn't like put it in the bank because it would just become nothing. And so they would quickly like buy stuff, like give me my money, go buy a loaf of bread. And it was nuts and crazy. And so hyperinflation is, that's a problem. Now, let's look at that in terms of the United States. We are not in a period of hyperinflation right now, but we are in a period of inflation. Okay, so remember the levers that I told you that a government can pull. So let's say, what is, like the first lever was you can create basically more money by borrowing it from other countries. Well, the United States, like what's our borrowing power? Well, thankfully, like we still can pull that lever, and we do. We borrow money from other countries and we rack up debts, okay? So that's possible. But it's not as attractive to lend money to the United States today as it was in the past, right? That we're becoming less and less attractive to lend money to. And part of that is because the value of our money, right? It's like, you got to think of this in terms of an investor, right? So investors want to get a return on their money. And so if they lend their currency to us, but they're seeing diminishing returns, they don't want to lend as much, okay? So it's getting harder, right? It's still there. But let's look at the second lever, interest rates. So the central bank, the Fed, can they lower interest rates? They have the power to, but interest rates today are at all-time lows. We've never seen them this low. And so we really don't have, like the United States has already pulled that lever, so you can't pull it anymore. It's not going to do any more good. The third thing is printing money. Do we print money? Yeah, you better believe we're printing money. We're printing money by the trillions of dollars. Like, it's difficult for me to describe like the magnitude of how much money has just been created. And that money is not tied to like something of real value. Again, it's all based on like a financial economy of supply and demand. And so if you just create trillions of dollars, so we get into the wrong mindset of thinking, great, like now I get my free stimulus check, right? Now I can go buy stuff. Well, you can't buy as much stuff with that money as you used to. And because like you've just diluted the value of money by creating it. And so to convey the magnitude, the trillions and trillions of dollars that we just invented out of thin air was, it was more than, entire economies. And it's certainly, forgive me, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that certainly approaches, if it doesn't supersede, our entire economy before creating that money. And so like to just overnight double your amount of money is to say now every dollar is worth half effectively. It's not, okay, don't throw stones at me, right? I am not an economist, just a mechanic, right? And I'm learning this too, okay? So I know that this is not pretty. So that I already know that it doesn't matter. You guys are gonna leave me, like people are gonna leave their negative comments. It's okay. I got thick skin. I can take it. I know I don't know everything. But just humor me and say, if you double your money, just like by wishing it so, by poofing it there, you haven't increased production by double. You haven't increased real value by double. You've just like invented it. Well, just think of a reverse stock split or a stock split, right? If you like just double the shares, it's not like every share is worth more. It's literally every share is worth half, and now there's twice as many shares. Same concept, okay? So we have this recipe that's leading towards periods of hyperinflation. And so we certainly are in a period of inflation. You can't argue with that. We're in inflation. Now, people might argue the fact that, well, hyperinflation is still a long ways out, or it'll never occur, right? I don't know one way or another. I'm not prophesying, right? I'm just saying these are symptoms, and we've seen it happen in the past, and they lead to hyperinflation, and that mixed with other symptoms leads to a change in the world order. So thanks for tuning in. There's going to be more videos talking about why this matters.